Hello students, this is my second video on operating systems. So in this video, we are going to discuss about resource allocation techniques, resource sharing, and some of the concepts related to efficiency, performance, and also the computational structures of operating system. First, we are going to start with resource allocation techniques. Dear students, as we discussed in the last video, one of the important tasks of the operating system is to allocate resources. We have a large number of resources in the computer system. These resources they need to be allocated to the programs by the operating system. However, to allocate these resources, there are two techniques. One is partitioning of resources. It is also called as static allocation, and we have the second technique known as allocation from a to allocation from a pool. This second technique is also known as dynamic allocation. So in the first case, that is partitioning of resources, as name itself indicates, the available resources they are divided into the group, and each group of resource is exclusively allocated to a program. The resources are exclusively allocated to a program. The first example, that is A, it shows an example of partitioning of resources technique. As it can be observed, the first set of resources they are called as partition 1 and they can be allocated to the first program. Similarly, second partition to second program and so on. On the other hand, we have the second technique called allocation from a pool. So in this case, the operating system is going to maintain a pool of resources. The operating system will have knowledge about all the available resources in the system. Here, the resource is allocated to the program only when the program makes request. Otherwise, that resource will be kept in the pool. As the resources are allocated as and when they are required, this technique it is also known as dynamic allocation. So the second example, that is figure B, it is it represents the second technique, allocation from a pool. As it can be observed, you have large number of resources. These resources they are allocated to the programs as and when they are required. You can observe the same thing in the diagram. Dear students, here you can think what is the advantage and disadvantage of these two techniques. As I told, first technique we call it as static allocation, and the second technique it is called as dynamic allocation. It is something like this. If you go to a hotel, there will be two options for ordering your lunch or dinner. Either you can order a thali or you can order the dishes separately. So ordering thali is something like static allocation because you are going to get a fixed number of items. You may or may not like the hotel is providing a fixed number of items. So it is an example for partitioning of resources or like static allocation. Here the advantage is it is easy to implement. It is easy to implement, but it leads to wastage of resources because you are going to get the dishes which you may or may not like. Some of the dishes will get wasted. Similarly, however, if you want to order the items separately, it can be compared with allocation from a pool. So in this case, you are going to order only those items which are required for you, right? The advantage is that leads to it leads to no wastage of resources, and however, it is difficult to implement. Okay, so I'm going to summarize these concepts. Partitioning of resources means the operating system is going to divide the available resources into group, and each group of resources they are exclusively allocated to the programs. The advantage is easy to implement or simple to implement. Disadvantage is it leads to wastage of resources. On the other hand, allocation from a pool, in this case, the operating system is going to maintain a pool of resources. The resources allocated to the program only when a program makes request. The advantage is no wastage of resources and it is difficult to implement. And in both the cases, the operating system is going to maintain a table called resource allocation table while allocating the resources. This resource allocation table mainly it includes name of the resource, class of the resource, address, allocation status. Resource name, an example is shown like printer 1, printer 2, printer 3, disk 1, disk 2 and CD writer 1. And class indicates the class to which that particular resource is belonging. Say for example, printer 1, 2 and 3, they belong to the class called printers. Similarly, disk 1, disk 2, their class is disk. And remember, each of the device, whatever we have in the computer, they are assigned with a unique address. That address is maintained in the third column and the fourth column indicates the allocation status. The allocation status means whether the resource is already allocated or whether it is free to allocate. So this particular table we call it as resource allocation table and it is used while allocating the resources, particularly in case of dynamic resource allocation technique. Okay, next we have the concept called resource sharing. Students, the available resources in the computer, they can be shared in two ways. Some of the resources, they can be shared sequentially and some of the resources, they can be shared concurrently. As the name itself indicates, sequential sharing means here a resource is exclusively allocated for a program. Only when that program completes usage of that resource, it can be allocated to other program. And in case of concurrent sharing, here the same resource can be shared by multiple programs simultaneously. So in the first case, the resource is exclusively allocated to a program. It cannot be used by other programs, or it can be used by other programs only when the first program completes usage of the resource. In the second case, the resource can be simultaneously shared by multiple programs. Even in real life also we get some resources which can be shared sequentially and which can be shared concurrently. Say for example, if you take an example of a pen, it can be shared sequentially. However, if you consider a blackboard, it can be shared concurrently by many of the students. In the same way, in computer also some of the resources can be shared only sequentially and some of the resources can be shared concurrently also. Here we have an example for sequential sharing and also an example for concurrent sharing. We have the first example, that is sequential sharing. So remember students, always CPU can be shared sequentially. Only one program at a time can make use of the available CPU. That's why we say that CPU, it is an example for sequential sharing device. Okay, just you go through the first diagram. You have you have a list of programs, that is the programs which are waiting for the CPU. Then you have a scheduler. So as we discussed, scheduler is that part of the operating system which select a program to be executed next based on some policy. The selected program will make use of CPU. The program which is selected by the scheduler is allowed to make use of CPU. And once if this program completes its execution, it is removed from the system. But suppose if the program is suspended, if it is preempted, again it is kept back into the list of pending programs. Here preemption means forceful deallocation of the resource. Students, can you think when it may happen? Okay, just consider an example. Assume that a program is under execution and at the same time a high priority program is scheduled for execution. In that case, the low priority program is preempted, that is, it is suspended and kept back into the list of pending programs, and a new program that has highest priority will be taken for execution by the CPU. So this is the situation, one of the situation which causes preemption, that is suspension of the program under execution. Then we have second example, that is an example for concurrent sharing. Students, the memory is a very good example for concurrent sharing. The memory, the memory can be used simultaneously by multiple programs. Just look at the example. In the example, two programs A and B, they are allocated with different part of the memory, and we have a lot of free memory space also. So remember, CPU, it can be shared sequentially, but however memory can be shared concurrently. Okay, next topic we have, students, that is computational structures. So in an operating system, the ultimate goal is to execute the programs or to execute the computations. However, the programs which are to be executed, they can be thought of as three different computational structures. First one, we call it as a single program. Second one is sequence of single programs. And the third one is called as co-executing programs. As the name itself indicates, single program means here a single program is executed independently by the operating system. Here the responsibility of the operating system is to perform initiation, that is program initiation, termination and resource allocation to the program. Here it is very simple. There will be only one program and this program is executed by the operating system. Then we have the second computational structure called as sequence of single programs. So in this case, a group of programs need to be executed in a particular sequence by the operating system to carry out meaningful tasks. In this case, there will be a group of programs. There will be two or more programs which need to be executed in a particular sequence to get meaningful work. Say for example, assume that you have a C program which is to be executed. So actually execution of C program, it includes compilation, then linking and getting the results. So at the first stage, a compiler program is executed which converts high level language instructions, that is C language instructions, into machine language. At the second level, the linking takes place. Whatever the library functions you have used in your program, they are linked with the functions which are defined in C language library. And finally, after linking, the execution takes place and you are going to get the results. So in this case, compiling, linking and executing the program, they need to be carried out in a particular sequence. That's why it is an example for sequence of single program. Then we have the third one, that is co-executing programs. So in this case, the programs, they coexist in the memory and they are executed by means of a kind of cooperation. We have one of the example shown in the slide. We have example of a Unix command. So we have cat names sort unique wc minus 1. So if you observe this command, you have vertical lines in between the commands. These vertical lines, they are called as pipes. Actually, by means of pipes, output of one program will uh, go to other program. That is, output of one program will be taken as an input by the other program. Okay. Okay, we'll discuss this example in detail. So actually, cat, it is the command which displays contents of a file. So here in this example, names, it is a file which includes list of names. Assume that names, it is a file which contains name of the students or name of the customers. Then we have command called sort. As the name itself indicates, it is used to arrange the names in alphabetical order. We are going to get sorting of the names. And we have a command unique which removes duplicate names. It will allow only unique names in the output. Then we have WC, it is word count. WC stands for word count. It will count the number of words. Here I will just summarize this command. Cat, it will display contents of the file names, and this output will go to sort command as an input. This sort command is going to arrange these names in the alphabetical order, and the output of this sort command is fed to a unique command which is going to remove the duplicates, and output of this unique command is given as an input to WC command. At the end, the WC will count the number of words in the file. So it is an example for co-executing programs. Here all the four programs, that is cat, sort, unique and WC, they coexist in the memory. Okay students, next we have some topic called efficiency, system performance and user convenience. Here we are going to discuss some of the parameters with respect to these topics. Okay, first if you consider efficiency of use. So here in generally efficiency, we are going to use the term for CPU. We'll calculate efficiency of the CPU. It indicates how effectively the CPU is utilized by the processes, that is programs. That itself we call it as efficiency. And the system performance in general, it is measured by using terminology called throughput. Then to measure the user service, we have again two parameters called turnaround time and the response time. Okay, we'll discuss this one by one. First, we have throughput. So actually throughput means the number of programs executed per unit time. The total number of programs executed per unit time can be called as throughput. Say for example, in 5 seconds, if you execute 10 programs, that can be treated as throughput. Okay, so in a unit time, how many programs that the operating system is going to execute, we call it as throughput. Then we have turnaround time. So actually it is the time since submission of a program to till its completion. So turnaround time, in general I can say that it is the total time required to complete execution till its since its submission to till its completion. The turnaround time can be defined as time since submission of the program to till its completion. Say for example, you assume that you have given a program for execution at time 11 o'clock, and if it completes its execution by 11:05, then we can say that the turnaround time for this program is 5 minutes, right? Then next we have response time. So actually response time is the time since submission of a sub request to the response from the operating system. You have submitted some programs for the execution to the operating system, but to get attention of CPU by a particular program, we require some time. That time can be referred to as response time. I can say something like this: the time required to get attention of CPU from a part of the program, we call it as response time. So throughput, number of programs executed per unit time. Turnaround time, it is time since submission of the program to till its completion. Then we have response time, it is time since submission of a sub request to the response from the operating system. Okay, students, we are moving to the next topic called classes of operating system. Students, we have large number of operating systems, and they are evolved over a period of time. So in generally, if you consider history of operating systems, these operating system can be divided into 5 different classes. They are batch processing, multi-programming, time sharing, real time, and distributed operating system. So here this table is very important. You can expect a question in the exam like explain different classes of operating system, specifying their primary concern and key concepts. Okay, we'll discuss this one by one briefly, and in the coming classes we are going to discuss each of this class in detail. Okay, first we are going to start with batch processing. So actually batch processing operating system, this class of operating system was developed in 1960s. At that time there were no computers, or rarely computers were available in some of the universities or in some of the research labs. So here the goal of the operating system was to reduce CPU idle time. So to do so, they used two important key concepts called spooling and command processing. So batch processing here, the goal was to utilize the CPU time effectively. So batch, it is a group of programs having similar requirements. Okay, next we have multi-programming systems. As the name itself indicates, it allows execution of multiple programs at a time. You can store multiple programs in the memory, and the advantage of multi-programming system is resource utilization. The available resources, they can be concurrently utilized by the concept of multi-programming systems. Particularly, it is possible to achieve concurrent utilization of CPU and I/O devices by using multi-programming systems. So here they used the key concepts called program priorities and preemption. Then we have the third operating system called time sharing. So actually this time sharing operating system was developed in late 1970s, and the main goal of time sharing system was to provide good response time. Here what they did is they had single operating system with single CPU, but they allowed multiple users to access this single CPU by a single operating system. The available time, the available time was shared. That's why it is called as time sharing operating system. In this case, each user program is executed for a small period of time, so that the users, they'll be under the feeling that the CPU or operating system is executing only their program. However, the multiplexing of the programs will be taking place within the operating system. They used the key concepts called time slice, and round robin scheduling. Time slice means the time for which a particular program is to time for which a particular program can be executed by the operating system in time sharing. That is, time slice usually will be of few nanoseconds or milliseconds. And round robin scheduling means here each programs they are executed in circular fashion. Suppose if you have programs P1, P2, P3, say P1 is executed for few milliseconds, then P2 is taken for few milliseconds, then P3 and again back to P1, P2, P3. This kind of scheduling we call it as round robin scheduling. Then we have real-time operating system. This concept was developed in 1980s. The goal of real-time operating system is to execute the task within the given deadline time. Here, the primary concern is to meet the deadline time. So to achieve this, these operating systems use the concepts like real-time scheduling. They use a separate scheduling policy called real-time scheduling policies. Remember, the goal is to execute a program well within the specified deadline time. Then we have distributed operating systems developed in the 1990s. The main goal of distributed operating systems was to provide sharing of the resources. Dear students, actually this LAN, WAN, internet, all these they are examples of distributed systems. So distributed operating system is one which provide sharing of available resources. That is the main goal of distributed operating system. And they used the key concepts called transparency. Then they used distributed control functions. So these are 5 classes of operating system with their primary concern and key concepts. Okay, below there is a graph. If you look at that graph, we have shown different operating systems. On the x-axis, we have shown user convenience. On the y-axis, we have shown the efficiency. Okay, if you look at the operating systems, the batch processing and multiprogramming operating systems was to meet the necessity of the users. To meet the basic necessity of the users, we had the evolution of batch processing system and multiprogramming systems. Then next we have 2 operating systems, that is time sharing and real time operating system. Their goal was to provide good service. To provide good service, we got the operating systems time sharing and real time operating system. And however, distributed operating system, it was developed keeping the concept of resource sharing in mind. Students, this is all about the classes of operating system. Okay, here I'm going to wind up this video. We'll discuss the next topic in the coming video. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, share and like the video. Thank you very much.